Hey everybody, welcome to 2000 to 2010, where I sported one of these for the majority of that decade, but also it was the beginning of my shaving obsession. You're watching Barber Dave's Barbershop at Home.
Over time I noticed there's nothing about this that ever feels quite normal. Kinda like we're always in a free fall. And if I had a time machine, I'd tell you, darling, it's not gonna be so bad. But knowing me,
Hey everybody, welcome back. Well, we're in the final stages of our journey across time as far as shaving is concerned. Today will be 2000 to 2010, and this is really this was a pivotal point for me in a lot of different ways. After dating for almost 10 years and being a widow, I was a newly married man. I had started a career as a firefighter, paramedic, based on what I did in the military. Unfortunately, that was cut short by a pretty serious back injury. And so I became a professional wearing a suit and tie every day. Oh, there was a little stint of truck driving in there for a little while. But then I started out as an insurance agent for one of the major carriers. And then I transitioned into owning an insurance brokerage, wearing a shirt and tie every day, making sure I looked good and stuff like that. And believe it or not, that's why the whole shaving and grooming thing. Because if you remember from yesterday, up until then, I had one soap, one brush, and a waishi. Well, after that first initial thing, I started really getting into it, and I started searching and searching and searching. So by mid 2000, I had a few DE razors, Gillette Tech, some other razors, and so forth. And towards the end is when I started getting into straight razors. And how that came about is I found a forum. Now, I'm not going to mention the forum in the name because we had a not so good parting, but it was because of that forum that I have made some lifelong friends who I call brothers, which we'll mention next Sunday. And it also is what brought me onto the path of meeting my partners, C. Vargo and C.B. Lindsay, and starting the shaving cadre. So as much as I disdain the way that people were treated on that other forum, it was the onus behind a bunch of stuff. And believe it or not, it was also my introduction into straight razors, because over on that forum, the straight razor thread was like the wild, wild west. Talking about honing, talking about straight razors, arguing about edges. And it was a pretty wild bunch. But I started looking, and I was on the internet, and I found everybody talking about this soap. And it was the best, absolute 100% best soap if you were a straight razor shaver. And that was called Mitchell's Wool Fat. And so it was from Britain, and it was from England, and it was supposedly smelled like soap, and it was super slick. And I went, you know what the heck? So Mitchell's Wool Fat was my second soap, followed by Mystic Water, and we'll go into that next time around. But I also needed some aftershave, something better than Brut, or not better than Brut, but just different. And I had served in Italy, and I had brought back Proraso, time tested and so forth. Well, being newly married and stuff like that, obviously the gifts that you get when you're married are usually perfume related. So Avocado Queen, Sharon, my wife, she purchased me this Tribute by Mary Kay. Now, at first I was like, Mary Kay, that's a woman's product. But I've always had this. And this bottle was actually given to me by one of my friends on the cadre, because my old bottle was bad. So, also, I only had one brush, but I decided to buy, what was this thing called? Boar brushes. They were supposed to make your face just come alive with scruffiness and scritchiness. So, I bought the Semogue 620. So, this is the brush from way back from 2000 to 2010. And then towards the end of so I shaved with various stuff throughout that. I won't bore you with that during the 2000s. And as you saw in the beginning, I was sporting a handlebar mustache, and it actually got much bigger than that until a mishap, and I shaved it off. But with that, I was only shaving, here. So my technique was getting better, but I had no idea how to shave on my lip. And then I did have a soul patch for a little while and so forth. But I met a few people on this place, and I started really wanting to get into straight razor shaving because I thought it was cool. But I did not want to strop or hone or this, so I started finding people that would do that for me. Now, I did realize that I had to strop, so I started with a newspaper strop, because people said that would work. And then I tried with a jeans strop. And then I went ahead and bought my first strop and completely ruined it within a couple of weeks of stropping. But I wasn't going to hone. That honing came in the next decade. So I met a guy that gave me my first straight razor. Now I have two straight razors that the first one I bought, which is... You've seen it before. The first one I purchased was at an estate sale in Tombstone, Arizona, and that's this right here. That's my my Joseph Elliott from the time period, and we shaved with it earlier. But the first razor that was given to me was what was called a Vorpal. I know, what the heck is a Vorpal? I don't even know if he's still in business, but there was a guy on the forum that actually took gold dollars and turned them into pieces of work. Or pieces of art, I should say. And so a very, very good friend on our current forum, we know him as the Monkey. On our former forum, it was Jay Tabor. And John sent this to me with a bunch of other razors and wanted me to try them out. So he is really the onus behind the fact that I've got hundreds and hundreds of straight razors now, which we'll go into in the next decade. So I was about to start my journey with straight razors, and this would have been mid-2000s towards the end of 2010. And just like when I first received the DE and my then girlfriend stood there and watched me shave, she thought I was crazy. I'm going to kill myself. It's going to be nuts. It's going to be terrible, and so forth. But what I had done is, being a research hound, I went on the internet and I found a gentleman by the name of Shemench, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And I believe he had moved from the United States over to Europe somewhere. And he was doing his 30th anniversary shave. And I was mesmerized. The technique was fantastic. The video wasn't done that well by today's standards, but it showed me everything that I needed to know on learning how to straight razor shave. So before I ever picked up a straight razor, I watched that video over and over and over and over again. Although it flew in the face of conventional thinking of shaving down here, and straight down, he came across. And I learned about mapping my beard, and it turned out that my beard would favor that. So I watched that video countless times, countless hours, and then it was the day. It was the day to start trying to straight razor shave. Now, that straight razor shave probably took me close to an hour to 2 hours because I was taking my time. And I didn't cut myself the first time, but it was a horrible shave. I think I did one pass. I didn't do anything against the grain. So today is not representative of that shave, but it represents everything that's sitting here. Was my first straight razor shave. And that was, like I said, towards the end of 2010. So I was in the insurance business at the time, but it also was the onus that would later, towards the end of that decade, or in the 2010s, to become a barber. After being retired from a couple of different industries. So we'll go into that next week. So let's get started. Now, the one thing that Shemench did that I thought was amazing is that he didn't rinse the blade off. He wiped it on a sponge. And I literally searched high and low to find this big, huge sponge like he had. I never found the one that he had, but I was able to go to some store, probably a grocery store, and find the thing. Now, I had by that time I had actually purchased another strop, and I was getting a little bit better at stropping, but it would still take me 20 minutes to strop. So what are we going to shave with today? That was a long road to get to where we're at. We're going to be shaving with a Vorpal. Now, this is a former gold dollar, the brush, and this was the first straight razor shave I did, and then the Samog 620. Again, I bought this back then. Mitchell's Wolfat. Now, I've gone through a ton of Mitchell's Wolfat since then, but this is the original Coffret, and of course, the Mitchell's Wolfat soap, and then followed by the Parasso. Now, I did also find talc and alum during those years, and so we're getting more back to the regular shaves. Now, one thing I was told, because I was following the gurus, is that to get a boar brush or a badger brush to really open up, that you got it wet, and then you took Mitchell, and it had to be Mitchell's Wolfat, and I still do this to this day when I get a new brush. I will lather the brush, coat all different sections, and then I'll let this sit for between 8 and 24 hours, come back and rinse it. And there is a magic to it, and it works. But I was also learning how to really get a good lather out of shaving soaps, and to take your time and to float a little bit of water on top, and to use this plunging action to get that soap deep into the bristles. Now, I had no idea what a boar brush was going to feel like, and quite frankly, the first time that I used it, it felt like I was hugging a saguaro. But I also learned, and I don't do it that much anymore, I'm doing it now, but that you loaded Mitchell's Wolfat like no tomorrow, because it was a horrible, even though it was the best for straight razor shaving at the time, it was a horrible soap. It didn't lather very well. I honestly, even in my first givings of it, never had problems with a proto lather, never had problems with getting a good lather on the soap. Most people would say, oh, it's because my water is so hard. Well, I thought about that, and I was like, wait a minute, I live in Arizona. Our water is not really water. It's basically just ground up rock, and never had a problem. So anyhow, my wife was standing right there. Well, actually, I take that back. We were in the master bathroom at that time, before I created this den out of our second bathroom. But I also shaved with hot water, which I don't really do anymore. So here we go. Ouch! Oh, it hurt so bad, because I was scratching my skin. I was like, why in God's name would anybody ever buy a brush that did this? And I said that until I bought a horsehair brush from V-Long, and that brush immediately was gone, because once a boar brush gets broken in, it's wonderful. But a horsehair brush, no thanks. So now I had a badger brush and a boar brush. I was done. I didn't need anything else. I had somebody who would sharpen the blades. I would strop it. One straight razor. That should be enough. Well, for those of you on the forum that understand what the Central Enablement Center is, because I was still under the impression that you could save money traditionally shaving, because this decade is where I really became a traditional shaver, I guess would be the best way to put it. But some 650 soaps later, almost 300 straight razors, and a countless number of DEs, and at least 40 to 50 brushes, no, you can't save any money. But it's been a journey that has led me to today, and all the family and good friends that I have. So anyhow, a certain individual was terrified, and the first Mitchell's Wolfat lather was not this good as far as doing it. So I was shaking, and I was thinking about that Shemensh video, and I said, okay, the razor is stropped. She was there with a first aid kit, and away we went. And literally, I did this. I was so afraid of this blade that I did not think. So I wiped so hey, I was doing exactly what Shemench did. And he had also just purchased himself for his 30th anniversary shave. And his video is still available. Just look for Shemench, Chimench, 30th anniversary shave. And he bought himself a 7-day razor set. And when I looked at that, I was like, oh my God, 7-day razor set. And at the time, they were probably $1,900. They were Thier scissored, I believe. Brand new. And as I approach my 23rd year, or in the 20s rather, at 25, I'm hoping to shave with a 7-day set that I have my good buddy Matt working on right now. Now, also remember, I didn't shave here. Here to here, I didn't shave. So later on in the next decade is when I learned how to shave under my nose. And also, that first shave is what led me to improve my technique and to eventually do what some of you have seen as the Straight Razor Learning Series, because I was determined to have the best possible straight shave I could get. And that's where all of this started, is from this point. So you're seeing kind of the birth of all that, and the YouTube channel and the TSC all happened with this one shave. Now, from here on out, the strokes and everything else are not what I did the first shave, because probably for the first, probably 20 shaves, I didn't do anything but with the grain. And I was always told that you have to get to 100 shaves. You have to get to 100 shaves, period. 100 shaves before you know what you're doing. And I took that as, gospel. And, obviously later I realized that it all depends on you. It can be 50 shaves, it can be 10 shaves. But the 100 is kind of the standard. Now, 10 shaves in, I was feeling pretty cocky. And using this razor, I had one of the worst injuries that I've ever had. And it taught me to be humble as far as straight razor shaving, because it can do horrible damage. So this razor, for the fact that here's a guy that barely knew who I was, but there's a few people that were on that forum that really reached out, and to this day, I cherish their friendship. John was one of them, because here a guy who doesn't know me from Adam sends me, with what at the time was a couple $100 at least. of straight razors. Says, yeah, try them out. And to the point where at the end, there was one other one that I loved more, but he wouldn't give me that one. The Schoenberg, which I'm still hunting for with the orange copperish scales. But he gave me this razor. So I cherish it for a couple of reasons. One, because he gave it to me and he reached out. We don't see the monkey too much anymore. But his kids, his daughter specifically, calls me the tamale man because he loves hot stuff and he loves Mexican food, so I sent him some homemade tamales. And so I became the tamale man, but I cherish that razor for that reason. But I did find how nice Mitchell's Wolfat was. I believe that I dispelled a lot of the rumors about, oh, it's terrible, you can't get the leather. But to this day, the Mitchell's Wolfat debate continues, and now they are using a non-tallow version, which I've heard mixed reports on. I've heard that some people say it's just like the old one, and then some people say it's not. So I have yet to try that because I've got a couple of pucks of the original, but I'll wait. And that's not like I need more soap. So the straight razor journey was great. And I'd like to think, in some small way, that I've contributed to people getting into straight razors over the years, that have used my techniques in learning. But really, what it comes down to is I'm very proud of the fact that I could have been the reason some people got into straight razors. That means a lot to me, not only as a forum owner, but as a barber and just a gentleman, because it is really the purest form of shaving. And those of you that have continued to watch and be a part of the channel, I hope you're enjoying it. So the next, the end of, or 2010 to 2020, next Sunday, and then 2023, they're mostly going to be about product, and the different razors. I will probably show some of the razors that came out between 2010 and 2020, both from a DE standpoint and a straight razor standpoint, because I do have a few new ones. But pretty much it's back to what you guys are used to seeing. On the channel. Now this buffing and flat blading were not done back then. Just getting through the shave was enough. And the flat blading technique is actually fairly recent. I came across that by accident one day. as is the buffing. And like I said, I do not recommend the buffing or the flat blading until you feel really super confident. In your straight razor work. So that's it. So the Vorpal, like I said, the very first straight razor shave, it's still a beautiful, beautiful razor. I love it. And Mr. Tabor, Monkey, John, your friendship is represented by this every single day. Okay, so I can't remember, but I think that I had watched that Shemensh video right before I shaved the first time. So then, looking on the forums, I found this stuff called alum. And I had only known alum for stuff that you used in cooking and stuff like that, but this was different. This was a miracle block of what is it? Potassium aluminate, I think. Or, yeah, I'm not sure which one. The sodium or the potassium is a better one. I can't remember. But anyhow, and you rubbed it on your face. Okay, so first straight shave, I figured, okay, I'll rub it on my face. I don't know what it's supposed to do. Well, what ensued next was screaming and me probably running around the house saying, get it off, get it off, get it off, because it stung. Because, you know, the pressure that I was using on the straight razor wasn't the greatest, even though I didn't cut myself. But, the burn. I'm like, why would anybody want to do this? So for years, some years later, I stopped using it altogether. I only recently have come back to it in the last probably 5 to 10 years. But, so I was like, why would somebody do this? Well, you know, obviously after I became a barber and doing a little bit more research, that the alum actually is an antiseptic. And it does give you a good gauge as to how well you did with the shave. Is it always going to sting a little bit? Yeah. I mean, sometimes you'll shave and you won't get any sting at all, but most times you get a little bit of a tingle. But that's good, though, because that, especially as a straight razor shaver, that gives you some guide on how you're doing. Once again, the brush we used was my original Simoke 620, still going strong. And this has become almost softer than a Badger brush now after 23 years or so, something like that. Okay, so then I did not know at the time that, you know, being a novice shaver, that you were supposed to rinse off the alum, and I never did. So later on in the day, I'd be there and I'd look at myself and say, I've got this ghostly white film on. So now I still hadn't started using witch hazel yet, so we won't do that, but I did have Parasso. Now this is the refill bottle, but I had it in a smaller bottle, but this is the original bottle that I had. I had the smaller bottle that I would use, but I have no idea where that's at right now, so we'll use the big bottle. And Parasso is just that classic Italian barbershop aftershave. Now, the first time I put it on, again, it was like putting something on your face and lighting it on fire. Because, like I said, I did not have the experience with a straight razor to know what the heck I was doing. Now, it got better. It definitely got better over time, and it's where it is today. But as you guys have seen, it happens. Also, real quick, I forgot to do this earlier. Please come and see us at the Shaving Cadre, Drinks and Daves. And if you enjoy the show, please just follow the instructions on that little graphic that come up. We'd certainly appreciate it. Okay, so then I found talc. And I was like, well, you know, I remember, and I'd go to a barber, and the barber would do the talc, and the barber would use this big, big brush. And so I said, wait, well, what the heck? You know, why not? And this is exactly what happened. I went down and I bought some Clubman, and I sprinkled way too much on it, and this is what happened. So I learned over time to get a smaller brush And yes, that was for effect. But boy, did it make the shave feel good. It made the, and then of course, I've been using talc and extolling its virtues for years. So then, the Mary Kay tribute. This is a wonderful evergreen fougere. It is the favorite of my spouse, and it is a favorite of mine as well. But it was one of the very first, and it means a lot to me because it kind of represents a lot about our relationship. It's just that, her family, there's a story. I don't know if this is true, that one day we had been over to her mother's house and I had been wearing this, and I left and went somewhere, and her sister Carol was sitting there, and I guess I had used the phone or something, and they said, her sister Carol says, she started to use the phone, I guess, and said, "Oh my God, who was here? This smells wonderful." So this is a very special fragrance for me. And the thing is, because they no longer it hasn't been made for years. Now, fortunately, one of my friends, Matt, was able to find the soap for this, the shaving soap for this, which I use. And then I had a bottle. I've had like 3 or 4 bottles over the years, but it's gone now. And fortunately, Bruce, Graybeard 57, a real good friend, had this at home. And unfortunately, his spouse doesn't get along with fragrances so much. So he sent me this, and this was a full bottle. So, so what this decade represents for me is just the camaraderie of the people that I've met over time. And the beauty is most of the people that I met on that other place have followed us to the shaving cadre. So anyhow, that's a trip down memory lane. We're getting close to the end of the Shave of the Decades. So start coming up and commenting on what would be the next thing that you guys want me to embark on. So that's it for this week. I hope you are enjoying it. So that's 2000 to 2010. Next week on Sunday, we'll do 2010 to 2020. And then on Monday, will be a special 2023 where I'm going to be using items that are all from 2023. So anyhow, I'm Barber Dave. This has been Barber Dave's Barbershop at Home. I hope everybody has an absolutely wonderful Tuesday, and we'll see you next week. Take care.